Railroads are always asking for bigger and better rail cars, and rail car manufacturers have always been one to push the envelope. This is true with gondolas, with the National Steel Car Corporations producing large volume gondolas like the 66-foot, 3,650 cubic foot gondola. This mill gondola produces a higher capacity with less raw material usage for a modern rail car design. Aurora Miniatures announced the release of their second North American railcar in September of 2022, and dealers took delivery of the NSC 66-foot gondola in January of 2024. This prototype only has one owner-operator, and that is going to be TTX, and thus Aurora has duplicated this with the only road name and paint scheme being the one seen today. Aurora does offer 20 different unique road numbers, as well as including a data-only version to allow freelance modelers to create their own versions of the car. MSRP is $59.99, but smaller discounts are available. The car that will be reviewed today is GMTX 295696. This unit rolled off the production line in November of 2012 and can be seen in general usage around North America. Starting off on the A end of the car, the ends are littered with separately applied details, the first of these being the longer style wire grab iron, as well as the shorter style irons as well. The shorter versions are the drop style, with the longer ones in the straight style grab iron. The smaller grab irons are situated in the depressed sections of the end plate. One of the things that is usually taken for granted is the printing, and Aurora has duplicated this well with the yellow and white lettering against the black car body base color. This normally gives car manufacturers some troubles, but this one looks really sharp and no softening of the printing. Additionally, some safety striping details can be seen on the lower ribs of the car. The shiniest feature on the car is going to be the crossover platform. This platform is an etched metal piece, unfinished, to show off the bare metal. This separately applied detail has the Morton style spacing on top of the platform. Off to the left side of the crossover platform is going to be the separately applied coupler cut bar. The cut bar does have a support jutting off from the side of the end plate that goes down and connects to the underside of the draft gear box. The coupler itself is the Aurora brand scale plastic coupler. It does not have any magnetic trip pins, but does have ribbing on the side to show off this scale appearance. Finally, the last thing to check out is the trainline air hose. This is a separately applied plastic detail and is very nicely detailed with the silver accent painting on the glad hands, as well as the metal union connecting the hose to the air piping. It's so detailed that the individual handle for the angle cut can be seen as well. Checking out the side of the car is a little bit difficult to get the entire length of the car body and frame, keeping a relatively close camera shot due to the 66-foot car body side. Some of the smaller features to check out are the wire grab irons on this first panel closest to the end. The first grab iron on top is the straight style, with the remaining three in the drop style. These are separately applied wire details. Just below the grab irons is going to be the separately applied stirrup steps. These look very finely done, attaching to the underside of the sill. Continuing with the details under the sill, another feature to check out is the jacking pads. The jacking pads extend towards the trapezoidal car body supports and run up the side of the car body. This does have some smaller printing for the pull, lift, and jack markings on the jacking pad itself. The car body rides on the Barber style trucks. These trucks do have the rotating roller bearing caps, and as modeled as a relatively new car, these caps are in the blue compared to the older style black roller bearing caps. The trucks themselves feature good molded on details as well as raised foundry lettering. Another nice feature is going to be the printing of the road name and number on the side of this truck frames. The wheels themselves are the 36-inch metal wheels. These are going to have the RP25 contour and the 110,000 treading. Finally, looking at the other side of the car, we can check out the COTS blocks that are legible under magnification, as well as checking out the AEI tag that's molded onto the car body side. Checking out the details on the B end of the car is mostly the same except for some of the smaller braking components. This side does feature a separately applied plastic brake wheel with the universal modern design. The brake wheel is attached to the brake wheel housing that's then attached to the end plate, covering up some of the ribbing on the ends of the car. The chain is extending down from the housing. This is simulated in a plastic separately applied detail that's very finely done, with the individual chains being able to be seen as well. Another smaller detail that we weren't able to check out on the A end of the car is going to be the draft gear box. This draft gear box is very finely done, almost looking to scale, with good molded on details that can be seen from the sides, as well as looking straight on towards the end of the car. Looking up top, the interior of the car is relatively plain with no features. This would be similar to the prototype being made from plate steel and not really having any markers. Some things to check out are going to be the top sides that are going to have the corner stiffeners, just a little piece of molded on detail that would provide support between the ends and the car body sides. Another thing to check out is going to be the holes on the side panels that allow the modeler to see inside the car body when moving down the track at track level. The underside of the car is honestly the most incredible aspect about this car. It's really a shame that the vast amount of separately applied details that can't really be seen unless the car is flipped upside down. The biggest braking component that can be seen is the air reservoir. This larger tank would hold a volume of air to provide braking support. The reservoir also has a few air lines that run from the side of the tank. Just below the air reservoir is going to be your brake piston. This piston would move the brake linkage in a braking situation and also has several air plumbing lines running to and from it. It's another separately applied detail that's painted in black to match the rest of the car body paint. On the other side of the support beam is going to be your control valve. The control valve is going to be your main heart and soul of your braking system components. It has several pieces of wire air plumbing running to and from the control valve, as well as having some good molded on details on the valve itself. Another smaller piece that can be noticed from the control valve is going to be your retainer rod handles. These are two smaller wire details that run to either side of the car body and allow the train crews to operate the control valve without having to get under the car. Throughout the entire underside of the car is going to be some very nice air plumbing with the main and auxiliary train line air hoses running from either side of the car, as well as having some brake linkage details that run between the braking components and the actual trucks. A lot of this air plumbing detail also has little pieces of angle iron to support it from any droppage in case of brakes. This can be noticed when the car is rolling down the tracks, as the car does have a little bit of a higher ride height compared to some normal other cars. Another thing to check out while we're down here is to take a note of the Aurora brand scale trucks. These trucks are very nicely done with the brake bracket detail and brake linkage detail integrated into the brake brackets on the underside of the trucks. The model is actually pretty long, coming in at 9¼ inches long, so the NMRA recommended weight is 5.63 ounces, and when measuring the car on a scale, give a weight of 4.48 ounces or 127 grams for a difference of 1.15 ounces to the lighter side. Couplers on the car are the scale plastic Aurora brand couplers, and when comparing to the Katy height gauge, it was found that both the couplers were slightly low. The wheels on the model are the 36-inch metal wheels, and these were all found to be in gauge as well. The car had pretty solid 3-point suspension when tipping the model over. The car had zero body wobble, was actually very solid, and impressed me quite a bit. For the scoring section of the review, the score will be broken down into several categories, each with its own points, totaling up to 100 possible points. Starting with the packaging, the overall packaging is nice with the hard plastic shell and soft plastic liner. The model does not include any extra rotating roller bearing caps, as well as no exploded parts diagram or instruction manual, a little disheartening for a model of this MSRP. The accuracy of the model seems to be fairly well done as well. Couldn't really find a whole lot of prototype photos for all angles of the car, and for several of these options, we'll just have to take it with a grain of salt. That being said, a lot of the photos did show off the sides of the car, and the printing and decals seem to match extremely well as the majority of the details. The one interesting part I was trying to find was an interior shot, because Aurora made these cars with basically no features on the inside, not even really any weld seams, but I couldn't find any interior shots to validate this. So overall, a great job. The paint on the model is overall pretty well done. A lot of the pad printing with the white and yellow lettering over the black car body paint is sometimes hard to accomplish, but Aurora did a pretty good job in here with only some minor softening of the printing in some harder to reach areas. That being said, the main logo with the yellow TTX and red Tuscan paint does have a few gaps near the ribbing where the paint is either missing altogether or softens quite a bit to show the black car body paint underneath. The details on the model are very well done. Overall, all the details that are expected to be there are there, and they're executed very well. It does seem that everything is finely done, but it doesn't seem to the point where it does make the car too fragile and prohibits the full use of the car. I really like the train line air hoses. They looked extremely well done with the glad hands and the angle cock, and overall I don't think there's anything that could be added to this, and frankly, just looking at the car, it's like a work of art, especially on the underside with the air plumbing and brake linkage detail. Really, it's just out of this world. The operations of the car is fairly well overall. I did run these cars a few times around the layout and did have some issues with the couplers, just with the finickiness and overall operations of the couplers. The scale plastic couplers did not run that well, and I had to swap them out to metal scale couplers. The overall weight was a little bit lower, but the car did run pretty well and didn't have any wobbling over some bumpy track. The couplers, trucks, and wheels are the Aurora brand finishings. The trucks are nicely done with the molded on details, as well as the rotating roller bearing caps. The wheels were all engaged with the metal 36-inch wheels. The only issue I did have were the couplers, which, to be honest, are absolutely garbage, and they are both low for the A and B end, as well as being plastic on a high MSRP model. Really, a premium model with such subpar features is a little bit disheartening. This is definitely the first feature I had to fix, and it would be better just to not ship any couplers with these cars. The overall value of the model is definitely subjective. The model comes in at an MSRP of $60, but the prices have been closer to $50 for some discounts for third-party shops. Once again, a really high MSRP for a single car, and despite the low production run of the real-life prototype and general uniqueness of the car, still a high price, and it does fall in a few places out of the box. So something to keep in mind when considering purchasing this car. Finally, the miscellaneous section of the car is absolutely gorgeous on the underside. The scale fineness of the braking details with the air plumbing and brake linkage is honestly some of the best I've seen in the industry. I also like that the car has a little bit of a higher ride height so that you can see some of the details while rolling down the rails. It just looks amazing, and I'll try to do more trackside shots just because you can actually see it with this car. Tallying up all the points gives a 90 out of 100 or a low A rating, and when comparing this car to other recently reviewed models, the model ends up pretty square in the middle, coming in tied for 18th place. That being said, I feel like the score actually kind of worked against the car. I really do enjoy this car, and I think it's absolutely gorgeous. That being said, the couplers are absolutely a major shortcoming of this car, and that's the first thing I would change. I would definitely recommend anyone to change the couplers as soon as they purchase these cars. It's not something to falter the overall experience of the car, but it's just something to keep in mind. Also, the weight is a little bit lower despite a fairly well executed car. It's a little bit lower in weight, and it's quite a bit difficult to add weight without the use of a load. It does run fairly well, and I think it makes a great addition to anyone's fleet. And I would definitely give this my recommendation to anyone that's even considering this car. I went ahead and I only had purchased 2 of these, but I'm probably going to go back and purchase more of these just because they look amazing. But let me know what you guys think about this car. I'm actually really excited for what Aurora has to offer in the future, and we'll be definitely purchasing more based off this Gondola. I do wish I had picked up more of the data-only versions to make some more BNSF cars. While not being exactly accurate, these are pretty close, and it seems like the data-only cars sold out almost immediately. But the other TTX Railguns are still available, but they are selling out quick if you guys are thinking about purchasing it. But that's all I got for you guys this time. Let me know what you guys think. Comment, rate, subscribe, and I'll leave you with one more run by shot. Thanks for watching.